Well, Skip Bayless's name has been very hot for a lot of the wrong reasons. When he tweeted out during the Bills and Bengals Monday Night Football game following the injury of Damar Hamlin that saw him literally get CPR on the field following cardiac arrest, Skip Bayless was like, yo, this is a big game. Pretty much he was trying to figure out whether this game going to get finished or not with the magnitude of it. A lot of people have been critical of Skip, including his co-host Shannon Sharpe, who did not come to work the next day on their show Undisputed. What does the biggest name in sports media have to say about this? None name bigger than Stephen A. Smith, a guy that I interned under. What up, Stephen A.? He recently was on a Sports Seriously podcast, and he addressed Skip Bayless's tweets. He said, I'm not going to judge Skip Bayless or anybody else for saying the wrong thing. God knows I have said the wrong thing. Intent matters. Yes, you got to be sensitive out there. Mental health matters. Life matters. Human beings, well-beings matter. And when you speak, you have to make sure that you're sensitive to everything that you can be sensitive to. Skip can defend himself. I've spent years disagreeing with Skip Bayless. I disagree with him now, and I'm going to disagree with him into the future, but he's still my brother. He's still a guy that brought me here on First Take, and I know who he is. I know what he's about. Do I agree with everything that he says or how he says it or the timing in which he used to say things? No. But the flip side is that I know by and large his heart is in the right place and people make mistakes. Now, Stephen A. also said this on the Draymond Green show recently about Shannon Sharpe not showing up to work the next day. He said, I can only imagine the kind of position that he found himself in light of Hamlin's injury. But that's your chair. You don't give up your chair for nobody. That's yours. I don't give a damn if you were in the chair and had nothing to say and you just want to skip the talk. You don't miss sitting in that chair because there's an audience out there that expected to see you. But I understood, like every single NFL player, present and former that I've spoken to, heart was in the right place, going through a lot. A lot of people actually, though, I think black people specifically were actually happy that Shannon Sharpe didn't show up to work, just to kind of combat a little bit what Stephen A. saying. But I do agree with his overall point. I don't think Shannon Sharpe should have no-show work the next day. Like, look, you did that, now what? There's probably friction between you and Skip that could probably never be 100% repaired deep down on Skip's end. To play devil's advocate, Skip Bayless should have never put Shannon Sharpe in that position. Like, just shut up and not tweet things like that. It was his Twitter. He had the right to tweet whatever he wants. And I believe Skip probably does his own tweet. He's probably one of the random people with a check mark that does their own tweeting. He should not have said that. He should not have tweeted anything that left it in the air about Damar Hamlin's injury, because in that spot, it was not about Skip Bayless. It was about Damar Hamlin, and anything of that nature, not about his health and was he going to make it, was insensitive, especially when you run a show where you want football fans to tune in to you, whether they love or hate your opinions. That's one thing, but you don't want them to turn the TV off for you, and that's what Skip Bayless created with that tweet. He created, I don't want to watch you the next day, not to mention your co-host didn't show. I would love to know the ratings, by the way, for that day on Undisputed. They probably started out really high thinking Shannon was going to show up, and they probably dropped when they saw Skip Bayless one man in that show that day. Now, I want to say this before we get up out of here. Speaking about Skip and Stephen A. For those who don't know, I used to intern at ESPN. I got to intern with First Take for 2 weeks. They let me sit in the studio and just study everything about Skip and Stephen A. I was there to study Stephen A., but oftentimes Stephen A. would be out of the studio working remote. He'd be covering NBA games, all that great stuff. So I would just be in studio watching Skip and Molly in Connecticut at the time. I want to say this. I do believe there has been a small window that has opened up for Skip and Stephen A. to do something together again. Stephen A. has yet to find a co-host since losing Skip that he feels great about, like a day-to-day co-host. I know he loves Michael Irvin. I don't think he cared for Max that much. He ain't found that one like Skip, right? He ain't found it yet. He might not ever find it. Skip Bayless was his one. Everything Stephen A. does played well off of the brand that is Skip Bayless. If there's friction between Skip and Shannon, if ESPN would acclimate to a show on the West Coast, which I do think Stephen A. will move. I don't know that. I know he loves New York, but if there were an opportunity, because like 8-10 years ago, remember, ESPN wasn't really open into moving from Connecticut. They wanted their stuff shot in Connecticut. Well, nowadays, you got Scott Van Pelt doesn't shoot in Connecticut anymore. First Take's not in Connecticut anymore. They got a few shows on the West Coast in Cali. I believe there is an opportunity for Skip and Stephen A. to rekindle that flame. Will it be with ESPN? Maybe, maybe not. But I do believe the door, with some of the things that have happened with Shannon and Skip over the last year and Stephen A. with First Take over the last couple years, I do believe the door has cracked open. And I want you to just put a little bookmark by this video because I do think it will age well. You know Skip's not going to stop doing this until he hits the grave. He's going to do this until he leaves Earth. This is what he loves. It's all he's into. I don't think he loves his wife as much as he loves watching the Dallas Cowboys. And recently on his podcast, the Skip Bayless Show, he said, I believe in contracts. Contracts are contracts. I have a contract. A couple of years back, Stephen A. wanted me to return to reunite with him at ESPN. ESPN made an offer, and my contract was a matching clause, and Fox matched, and I'm still here, and I go to work with all my heart and soul every day. I'm just telling y'all, just watch that, all right? Just watch that right there. I'm telling you, there might be some smoke there in a couple years' time if their contracts align and there's an opportunity for them to get back together in a better location than when they previously worked together in Connecticut.